Hi guys, today I am so excited and so honored to have an absolute legend from the world of automotive journalism here on my humble series, Brown Car Guy and Buddies. I've got Sue Baker, and if you ever saw Top Gear before Jeremy Clarkson, you would have seen her because she was on Top Gear for 11 years from 1980 to 1991. She's written for just about every publication going. She's raced, she's rallied, she's co-driven for Michele Mouton. She's been doing this for nearly 5 decades. She's an absolutely extraordinary person. She was chairperson of the Guild of Motoring Writers at one point. I can't wait to get into this conversation with her. I'm so excited, as you can tell. Before we do that, make sure you are subscribing to youtube.com/Brown Car Guy. Make sure you follow me on all the social media channels. Just search for my hashtag. It's right there on my hat. It is hashtag Brown Car Guy. And of course, subscribe to browncarguy.com. If you enjoy my content, you can consider, please, supporting it and sponsoring it. And you can do that at patreon.com/Shazad Sheikh. I'll tell you more about that at the end of the video. Right now, I can't wait to get into this. Hi Sue, how are you doing? Great to have you on the show.
How are you, Shazad? Lovely to see you.
Thank you very much. I'm fine. Thanks so much for doing this. It's a real honor to have you on my Brown Car Guy and Buddies series.
It's an honor to be with you. It's a shame we can't get together properly, but in this strange year we're all living through, this is the way it is.
How has it been for you?
Well, peculiar. Lockdown. Nothing much happening. Work has gone on, but I've been writing columns rather than road tests. So, we've all had to adjust to a strange new world.
Yeah, but hopefully round the corner, we've got vaccines coming. So fingers crossed for a better 2021.
Oh, well, we would hope so. It couldn't be worse than this year, could it? But hey, we'll all get back to normal in due course. How has it been for you, Dad?
Yeah, I've just been keeping myself busy, as you've probably seen, just doing as much as I can do in the circumstances. But yeah, it's been up and down. Could be better. Like I said, fingers crossed for a better 2021. So yeah. I first became aware of you, the legend who is Sue Baker, back when I used to watch Top Gear, and you did Top Gear from, was it 1980 to 1991, 11 years on Top Gear. And
correct, yes.
Was that right at the beginning of Top Gear, or was Top Gear around before then?
No, Top Gear started in 1977, and I joined it just a few years after it started. But of course, this was old Top Gear that we look back on now. It was a classic motoring magazine program, and of course, it's nothing like that anymore. It's a mega travel the world show.
It is indeed. But sticking with your version of the show, was that with William Wollard and Chris Gothi and all those guys?
It was. We were a regular team of 4, William Wollard, Chris Gothi, Frank Page and myself, with occasional others joining in. But yeah, for most of the 80s, that's the way it was. And
what was sort of the main, when you sat down and you planned an episode of Top Gear, what was sort of the main thinking? Was it because at the time it was a very serious, quite a serious. It was a BBC educational show, it was a knowledge show, it was an informational show, really, wasn't it?
Well, it was very much which new cars are coming on the market and what do we think of them. It was in effect a motoring magazine with a series of road tests in it and other reports about what was happening in the motoring world, but mostly it was concentrated on the metal. We went out, we drove the cars. I had to fight my corner not to get all the little shopping cars, because I was the woman in the program. But I managed to argue that, and it was great fun because we travelled the world. In a different way to modern Top Gear. They, now they're doing these mega fun programs with adventures. We were going to the places where the cars were available, Japan, Korea, wherever, and driving the new cars before they arrived on the market here. So it was an entirely different world, really.
I mean, to be honest, at the time, Top Gear for somebody like me and I'm sure my contemporaries was something that told us, gave us an insight. I mean, we read magazines, we read everything that was written, But of course, this was the era before internet and YouTube. So Top Gear for us was like, wow, we actually got to see the cars in action. We got to see somebody driving them. We got to learn so much about them. Do you think that was very much a show that was required at the time? Or has it evolved beyond what it should have been now?
I think it was very much right for its time. We did do some mild adventurous stuff, but it was a BBC Two program. It was meant to show people what the cars were like. It was meant to give our impressions. It literally was, you know, a series of road tests on the screen. And I think it was right for its time, but I don't think it would work in the same way now. I'm often asked, you know, why don't we bring back old Top Gear and do it the way it was done? I don't think that will work now. We're in a different world. People want, more exciting stuff maybe. It was of its time, and it was a tremendous time to be involved in it, but I don't think it would work today.
Are you a fan of current Top Gear?
Ish. I love some of what they do. The wilder stuff, I find myself getting a bit, what is that all about? But I will watch anything that has a car in it. I've always been a car girl. Ever since I was a small child, I've always been fascinated by the way things work, and cars in particular. So, I will watch any program that has cars in it.
So let's go back to that. Because often whenever I get people on here, because this is always something that I'm always fascinated by. So where did it come from? Where did the car gene come from? Because coming from my own personal experience, there's no reason for it whatsoever. My dad wasn't into cars. My brother still doesn't drive. I mean, there was an uncle. There was nothing. You know, it was just there. So how did it come about for you? How did you get into cars?
Well, I think to some extent it was my dad. He wasn't particularly a car guy. I mean, he liked cars, but to drive and get around. He wasn't obsessed with them in the way that I've been all my life, but he was a very techie guy. In fact, he was head of mechanization for a major bank.
Wow.
And so he dealt with the way things worked and what would, which equipment would work in the branches of the bank. And he used to bring home stuff for his two daughters to try out, because he reckoned that if we could work things, then, it wasn't going to be a problem for staff in the bank. And I always wanted to know how things worked. I wanted to dismantle things, put them back together. That's what I enjoyed. And I think love of all things technical led me to love of cars.
So, and this is the other thing, because I saw from your bio that you kindly sent me, was that it says one of your ambition was to work in Fleet Street. So, yes. And it's another thing of interest to me. It's like, so what came first for you? Was it journalism or was it the cars?
Oh, it was journalism as far as a career was concerned, because when I was about to leave school, I wanted to go and work on a newspaper. I was fascinated by by the idea of journalism. And in fact, when I was 15, I wrote to the editor of my local paper and said, I want to come and work for you. And he said, go away, get your A-levels, and then talk to me again. So the year in which I joined the newspaper, I was lucky because they had 40 or 50 applicants for 2 jobs. And I got one of them. And I think one of the reasons that I did was because I'd been in touch, years earlier. So my name was already in the frame.
Right.
I think, you have to make your own opportunities in life. And I've never regretted having done that.
No, absolutely. I mean, we've had some great stories on this series from people on how they started. And, I spoke to, I don't know if you know, there's a guy in India, Adil Darukhanewala. And It's interesting because his career in journalism started off in an argument, but but that went very well for him in the end.
I like that.
But how, so I'm trying to try and understand the context of when you would have started, because this would have been the 1970s, I suppose. Yes, and you got into...
late 1960s. I joined the local newspaper in the late 1960s.
And then you progressed into motoring journalism. What was the motoring journalism scene like in the late 60s, 70s, especially, being a woman in that environment?
Well, because I was mad about cars, I was always putting my hand up on the local paper and saying to the motoring editor, if you're going on holiday, will you let me write a few pieces? And because he wasn't interested in motorsport, and I was hugely interested in motorsport, and the local newspaper I worked on was in the catchment area of Brands Hatch, I volunteered to go and do the coverage at Brands Hatch. And to begin with, the motoring editor then didn't reckon that I should, because you know, we're talking a very long time ago, and well, you're female, what have you got to do with cars? So I took myself on a Page and Moy package trip to Le Mans and had a wonderful weekend, and came back and wrote an article on it and put it on his desk on the Tuesday morning for that week's paper. And nothing was said, but it was the article was published, and the following weekend there was a press pass on my typewriter of a Brands Hatch, and I never looked back, really.
That's amazing. Were there many women in your field at the time, you know, doing what you were doing?
I wasn't the first, but there were very few, and I shall never forget the first press launch I went on in Italy, a car launch, because there were only 2 women on it, and the other one was not at all impressed to having, you know, another female on the scene taking the attention from her. So that was a pretty strange beginning to you know, my motoring journalism career. But over the years, more and more women happily have become involved, and I think we should all help one another. You know, I look back at that time when a woman wasn't very encouraging to me when I first arrived, and I've always tried to be encouraging to everyone else coming up behind me, because, you know, it's not easy. It is a man's. It always has been something of a man's world in motoring journalism, and I think the women that are in it should help one another.
Absolutely. Do you think that there is enough of a balance now, or are you still some way to go?
I think there's still some way to go, but it is becoming more balanced. I think, you know, people are much more used to seeing women on the motoring scene, and that's a good thing, because, you know, half the driving population are female. And all right, traditionally, men have been more interested in cars, maybe, but I think we've been doing our best to change that over the years.
Well, I think that, you know, there's a stat which I can't remember off the top of my head, but you'll probably know it better than I do, because you're involved with the World Women Car of the Year awards as well, aren't you? And isn't it something like 60% of all car buying decisions are actually led by the women?
Well, I think it's actually more than that.
Yeah, it could be. I could be wrong.
Depends which country you look at, and you know what the statistics are. But it's certainly heading for something like 60-65%.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yes, that make the decisions. And of course, there's the famous story about the couple who go into a dealer to buy a car, and the salesman talks entirely to the husband and ignores the wife, and eventually she gets fed up and she walks out. And the salesman says to the chap, "Right, well, let's do the deal now." And he said, "Sorry, you know, the finance manager just walked out." And we've come an awfully long way, but there's still some prejudice against women in certain areas of the motoring world, and I think we've got to overcome that.
I think so. And I think that sometimes people don't even realize they're doing it. I used to be on a radio show in Dubai, and we used to get a lot of call-ins. It was a very popular show. And every now and then we get a call-in from a guy, and it would be something along the lines of, you know, I'm looking to buy my wife a car or my girlfriend a car, you know, and what should I get? And we're like, well, you need to ask her, you know, that's what you need to do.
Yes, absolutely.
But I mean, going back to the early days, I was just taking you back again in time a little bit, because it's fascinating to look at the 70s. I mean, we get movies and stuff. There was recently a movie a couple of years ago, you know, about the famous battle between Hunt and Lauda. And you were covering that at the time. And that was a very, you know, I mean, this is the era of pit babes and glamour and all that. And there you are, a reporter in the middle of all that. I mean, how must that have been?
Oh, it was absolutely amazing. And also we're talking about days when everything wasn't as incredibly segregated as it was now in Formula One. So I could walk down the pit lane chatting to James Hunt, who would chat to any woman in the world. You know, he was just such a wonderful character. And to be on hand watching the saga between Hunt and Lauda, the sort of rush years, was just amazing.
That's incredible. But I mean, again, the whole aspect of, being taken seriously as a journalist at the time? I mean, was that something that, again, you found you had to overcome, or was that something that, just from your work, it came naturally?
Do you know, in motor racing, it was easier because
Ah,
I found more acceptance there. Everyone just got on with the job, and as long as you were clearly serious about it and writing serious copy, nobody took any exception to you. Although, of course, Formula One was then an entirely, as it is now, entirely male scene.
yeah.
But it was just a wonderful time, an exciting time, and the characters in Formula One, they were quite amazing. They're wonderful people.
Do you think that Formula One has divorced itself too far from its audience and the people, the enthusiasts now, if you like? It's become too clinical?
I think there's a bit of a danger of that. I think fans could get closer to their heroes back in those days, and I think that was healthy for the sport. Now there is this sort of huge segregation, and I think that makes it more difficult for people to really embrace the sport in the way they used to.
And Lewis Hamilton, obviously now he's become the most successful driver, in the history of F1 pretty much.
Yeah.
But he's also the first black driver. Do you think that's been a long time coming?
I think it's been a very long time coming. I'm a very big fan of Lewis Hamilton. Oh, excuse the dogs in the background.
He's a Lewis Hamilton fan, that's for sure.
Yeah, my dog's called Bentley, and he's very excited. Yeah, I think what Lewis has done is absolutely amazing. But he's been so dogged and determined, and really focused on his career. And I think he's now using his fame to say things that need to be said. All credit to him. I do hope the rumours are true that he's going to get a knighthood, because I think he deserves one.
Yes, absolutely. So you think there's more scope for, let's say BMA, ME people, black ethnic minority people, not only in motorsports, but in the automotive world in general? This is something that I've been looking at a lot lately, and I've done some features on it as well. But also, like, even in our own world, in our own industry, in our automotive media industry. I mean, as a mutual friend of ours, Kevin Haggerty,
Yep.
I got to know him, must have been in the late 90s, when I first went on an international launch, and he was the only other black guy in the room, and I just made a beeline for him, and I was like, brother, and we've been friends ever since. And then, as you know, I was out of the country, and I came back, and I've been to a few events with him since then. And I remember saying to him that, I was expecting a lot more black and Asian faces now at these events since the last time we were doing it.
But it doesn't seem to have happened particularly. Yeah, Kevin's a really good guy, and in fact, he's one of the people that I have always made a beeline for on car launches to drive with, because his driving talent is excellent. And to be fair, I can't say that of all my colleagues. I think it's very important to take your drive. If you're testing cars for a living, it's very important to take things seriously. And over the years, I've done as many courses and as much training as I can to try and hone my skills. And Kevin is one of the people I would drive with, because I feel just so utterly safe at a high speed. He's a very accomplished driver. Yeah. So I wish I could say that about every motoring journalist, but some don't take it as seriously as others, shall we say.
Well, you've seen motoring journalism evolve over the decades that you've been doing it, and you've seen new people coming into it. Obviously now there's a move towards, YouTubers and Instagrammers and stuff like that. Do you think this is a natural evolution, or do you think that we're losing something through the way things are going now?
I think it's a very natural evolution. It's going to happen. Times change, and journalism generally has changed, and motoring journalism is certainly changing. I do regret that some of the people coming into it, I think, are doing it for the razzmatazz rather than the love of the car. And I think that's a great pity, because I think traditionally most motoring journalists have been very much car people. They've been very keen on what they do. They do try and hone their skills and increase their knowledge as much as they can. And I do worry that some of the people now coming into it at a different level don't take it as seriously as they did. And if you are telling other people what cars are like to drive, you should damn well know what you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a sense of responsibility, I think, that is lost on people. I know that people buy cars on the basis of what I say. Therefore, I feel more responsible about what I'm doing,
Absolutely,
yeah,
yes.
because it's a big investment for a lot of people.
Yeah.
You're talking about honing your skills, but of course you did some racing as well, didn't you? You raced cars.
Yeah, I did enough racing of cars to know that I'm a better journalist than I am a racing driver. But it was good fun. I worked for a year at Brands Hatch running a motor racing news service there. And during that time, there were lots of opportunities. They had what they called Shell Sport escort races, where they would
what was that again?
Shell Sport escort.
Oh, Shell Sport escort. Right. Got it.
In the old Ford Escorts.
Yeah.
And Brands Hatch kept a string of these cars, and they would invite the lords versus the commons, or male men versus women, anything to make a bit of a showy race, as a bit of humor in between the more serious races. And I did a number of those at various circuits, and it was great fun, and I enjoyed it. But I wasn't a winner. I did do a motor racing school course to try and hone my skills, but that wasn't my aim in life, really, to be a racing driver. But I did have much more fun as a rally co-driver.
Oh my God, you co-drove with Michele Mouton. That's amazing.
I did indeed. And as a co-driver, I was always renowned for how strong my stomach was. So however fast the driver, my stomach would hang on, which wasn't always the case with co-drivers. Well, she was the one person who made me almost throw up in the car.
Oh my goodness.
So ruddy quick. She was just we did win the rally.
Yeah, I've seen the footage. That's incredible. But also, I was a big fan of Michele Mouton. Don't tell her that I had a crush on her. But she was amazing.
Absolutely amazing. Such fun to be with. She's got a twinkle in her eye. She got a humorous streak to her. And when we were on intercom system, and at the point at which I was almost throwing up because she was going, hell for leather to win the rally. There was silence through the intercom, and the next thing I heard was, "Okay, you missed one bend. What next?" Right back to the job.
Oh my goodness, she's very dedicated, and really, she should have been world champion, right? I mean, I think just for that one thing, she should have been world champion.
Yes, yeah, she was just so totally focused on the job, like like any top driver, and she was just amazing to watch. Very smooth, but with lots of drama, lots of movement. You get a rally car, and we were in a short wheelbase Quattro.
Yeah.
I can't tell you what the petrol fumes were like in that. I think that's why I nearly threw up.
I mean, one of the things that motoring journalism does afford us is these incredible experiences and these incredible opportunities. And, and I can relate. I've been out in a Dakar Mini with Nasser El Attiyah, and we've been jumping to the dunes, and I got to drive the car as well. I tried co-driving, and I can tell you that I found it impossible. So I mean, doff my cap to you. That's full respect, because literally try and focus on notes when all this is going on. It's just, oh my goodness, it's phenomenal.
We get amazing opportunities as motoring journalists. I mean, I've been driven around racetracks by some of the most famous drivers in the world, Ronnie Peterson, Jackie Stewart, Graham Hill, etc. And I once did the Beaujolais race in a Mercedes estate car with, of all people, 5 times Le Mans winner Derek Bell.
Wow.
And that was an experience, driving through the night with somebody like that. And in the middle of the night, I remember rather stupidly saying to him, I don't know how you keep going at this pace in the middle of the night. And he sort of looked sideways at me and said, "Well, when you've driven at Le Mans, you know how to drive through the night."
Amazing.
It was great fun. Lovely man.
And you yourself have done a lot of stuff, like getting lost in Japan in a Toyota, breaking down in a Land Rover and the Great Tropical. Actually, to be honest, breaking down in a Land Rover is not an unusual thing, is it really?
Unfortunately not. No, that was a funny story, because we were in Australia, and we were doing a drive from north to south up into Queensland. And the suspensions, it had air suspension, it started playing up, and we were a bit worried about this. So we thought, well, we park the car overnight where we were staying and see what happened in the morning. And we were staying in this strange place, which was an old railway carriage turned into, very bespoke bedrooms. And I remember pulling back the curtains in the morning and looking out, and there was the Land Rover with its bodywork almost squatting on the ground because the suspension had gone right down.
Yeah.
So we knew we weren't going any further on that adventure. We had to catch a train instead.
Oh dear, things like that do happen. But cars have got a lot of technology in them now, and you've seen cars, evolve over the time that you've been working with them. Do you think that's to the benefit, or overall to the detriment of the experience of driving a car today?
Well, I think it's overall to the safety of driving the cars, because a lot of the equipment we have in cars these days actually protect the driver from himself or herself. So I think it's come an awfully long way in making cars safer. Some of it, I think, is getting too complicated. I mean, I've seen one or two cars recently with screens right across the dash, and there is so much to look at that I think it's a distraction from what you're supposed to be doing, which is looking at the road ahead and staying on it. So I think we've got to get a balance somewhere. It's maybe shifting a bit too far in one direction, and we need, to pull it back to the realms that the human being can deal with. Although if we're eventually going to have autonomous cars and we're just going to be sitting there letting the cars drive, I think that's terribly sad, really, because we've had the era where you have fun in a car, and I don't think that's going to happen in the future if you're just a, permanent passenger.
And talking of the future, I mean, do you think that, one of the things I get approached a lot by young kids saying, we want to do what you do, we love what you do, and I'm like, don't do it. Because, when you're starting a career now, you can't think about the next few years, you've got to think about the next few decades. And I'm like, well, I don't see a future in this, and do you feel the same? Do you think that what we do is we're going to become less and less relevant as cars get cleverer and cleverer?
In the longer term, yes, unfortunately, because cars aren't going to be the cars that we know today. But in the short term, I believe if you want to do something in life, you do it, and you can move on and do something else different afterwards. But I would encourage anyone who wants to do motoring journalism to at least have a go, because it has been a wonderful life, and I think for a little while longer it will be.
And what would be the main tips that you would give to any young person that would be thinking about getting into this?
Learn. Really study, concentrate on knowing as much as you can about cars, take it very seriously. Don't think that this is just something you can jump into and have fun at. You really work at it. And I think that's the best advice I could give anyone.
Do cars still excite you after all these years? The modern cars, when you get in them, do you still get that frisson of like, oh, wow, I'm going to drive this car?
Oh, yes, yeah. Although I must say some of the older ones excite me more quite often. Cars are such fun. They're such a big part of our lives, and we're human beings, and we like activity, and we like movement, and we like excitement, and that's what cars give us.
But like you said, you feel, I think from what you were saying earlier, it feels like you think the golden era is sort of behind us, and but you've fortunately had the benefit of experiencing that. So are you going to be doing a biography or a memoir of your time in this field?
Well, in fact, I've started doing a column, a monthly column for a magazine called Retrospective, which is a lot of the stories of the golden years and things that went on. I do that for a magazine called Diesel Car and Eco Car, and that's fun to do. But I think eventually, probably I'll put this together in a book. Whether anyone will want to read it, there are other exciting things going on, who knows? But just maybe for my family down the years to look back at the fun that I had over many years.
I think a lot of people will want to read it, actually, to be honest with you. I will certainly read it. I think it's a fascinating thing. Sue, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on my little video series. Thanks so much for doing this. And, long may you continue motoring. Any final messages for people who are watching this?
If you love cars, engage with them, enjoy them while you can. Yes, a different era of motoring is coming. It will change, but we'll adapt to it. But for now, just make the most of the cars that we enjoy in the current time. They're wonderful things. They've given lots of us so much enjoyment. Embrace them while they're still the cars that we know today.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Sue.
Lovely to talk to you. Bye, Shazad.
Wow, what an absolute legend of a lady. I'm so excited and honored to have had her on my humble series, Brown Car Guy and Buddies. The things that she's done, all the experience that she's had, I mean, what an inspiration. I hope you enjoyed that conversation. Do hit the like button and leave your comments, what you thought about this conversation in the comment area, of course. Make sure that you're subscribing to youtube.com/browncarguy and hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any videos like this. You don't want to miss out on amazing conversations like that, right? Also, follow me on all the social media channels. Just search for my hashtag. It's very easy. It's on my hat. Hashtag BrownCarGuy. And of course, subscribe to browncarguy.com. If you enjoy my content and consider please supporting it and sponsoring it, and you can do that on patreon.com/ShazadSheikh, and you can join such incredible people as Muhammad Ali Umaid, Partha, I'll find him on parthans.com. You've got Isaac Beauchard, find him on bespokeautos.com. You have Reza Adil, find him on Instagram at alizadeh.cigars. You've got Muhammad Qasim, WEAM, you know what, the URL is coming up on the screen. I always get his confused and wrong. And you have, of course, Tom Conway Gordon, and you have my latest one is Siraj Abbasi. Find him on virtuosodesign.london. I hope I've mentioned everybody. If I missed anybody out, don't worry, they're scrolling up on the screen right now. Those guys are absolutely amazing, and you know what, you can join that lineup and your name could be here on the screen as well. Wouldn't that be great? And it's from as little as £2 or $2 a month. So yeah, very little. Just head over to patreon.com/ShazadSheikh. The link is below in the description. If you can, that'd be absolutely awesome. If you can't, don't worry. Like I said, make sure that you hit that like button, comment, share if you can, subscribe. Of course, you're doing that, right? Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you all soon again in the next video.